I mean, I think right now the view is still this is a full year deal. And they're going to basically decide what are their new metrics. They've used the 5-year average. Are they going to change the metrics for that in terms of inventory levels? Are they going to really target investment? But I do think it is a full year deal. When you talk to ministers, they say, yes, we've had this run up in prices, but we're looking at the full year price average.
When we look at what happens next in terms of these relationships, there's been such a rapprochement between the Russians and the Saudis.
Yes.
And also, of course, there's a lot of confidence in what's going to happen with Asian markets as well. The Saudis have a really, really close relationship now with the Chinese government. How do you see those relationships evolving given what we're seeing geopolitically?
What I think is so interesting is you have 24 countries out in this OPEC, non-OPEC, Vienna alliance, and there's a real effort to cement that relationship. So even if the full cuts don't continue into 2019, there's a sense that this dialogue and partnership with Russia has been very productive. They don't want to let that go. And I think that is a real change to this market. 3 years ago at the OPEC seminar, you had the Russian oil minister say, we're not going to cooperate with OPEC ever again. Now you have Alexander Novak, the Russian oil minister, on the stage at the OPEC meeting. So I think this is a relationship built to last.
And when we look at what happens next with Iran, a lot of questions.
Huge questions. And that's why I think that OPEC is going to be cautious and why Saudi Arabia, I mean, they have an additional 190,000 barrels that they're basically under their OPEC quota. And I think that can be used once sanctions start kicking in. So there's really no need, I think, to adjust the production levels, but I think they're going to be watching to see how quickly the sanctions come back and impact Iran's ability to place their barrels.
Helima, hi. This is Martin over in Singapore. Let me quickly jump in with a question. In terms of supply, earlier on we were talking about how the latest OPEC numbers indicate that the glut has pretty much been all soaked up. I want to get your view on U.S. production, shale production, the production response that is. How aggressively do you think they're gonna ramp and they're gonna get oil out there?
Here's the big issue with U.S. shale production. It has come back, but shale has been a bit of a victim of its own success. And now we're starting to see infrastructure bottlenecks, particularly on pipelines. So that's why for the Trump administration, they are actually appealing to the traditional Gulf allies, Saudi Arabia, UAE, to put more barrels on the market to offset Iranian outages. And so this is a really interesting question because a couple years ago, there was a view that U.S. shale was Superman, that basically we wouldn't have to go back to the traditional producers and say, put more barrels on in the event of a shortage. But again, now that we have these infrastructure constraints, now that we have the issue of pipelines that are reaching capacity, Trump administration has to appeal to traditional allies in terms of managing the market.
I think that's so interesting that you bring that up because yesterday we had His Royal Highness Prince Turki Al Faisal, son of King Faisal. That was the man who really, essentially held global oil markets hostage back in the 70s. I asked him, is there ever going to be an opportunity again for Saudi Arabia to really take the mantle there and do that again? What's your take on that?
I mean, I think this is so interesting, and I think we're back to a situation that we did not anticipate of having to appeal to these traditional allies because, again, if you reach infrastructure constraints in terms of ability to put additional barrels on the market, and you are going to be taking off Iranian barrels, and don't forget Venezuelan production. I mean, Venezuelan production has played a huge role in balancing this market. They could lose 1 million barrels year on year. So in order to prevent a spike to 100 potentially, you have to go back to Saudi Arabia. You have to ask them to put barrels on the market.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.